Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Tarana Ali, and today we're going to look at some highly effective study techniques that we can all apply to upgrade our learning. And these are all evidence-based tips, so if you're interested, please keep watching. So I want to start off by addressing this tendency that we all have of cramming our studies last minute before an exam. And although we may or may not do well, we end up forgetting everything just as quickly as we learned it. Here's why. So to begin with, I want to show you this interesting book called Make It Stick. It makes an interesting claim that is, learning is deeper and more durable when it's effortful. Learning that's easy is like writing in sand, here today and gone tomorrow. So I think we can all agree on this, and if you do, please keep on watching to find out how you can remedy this. So the first evidence-based technique that we're going to look at is called the spaced repetition, which is basically reviewing lessons at spaced out intervals, as the name suggests. Okay, so let's help you visualize this a bit. Say you want to measure your retention capacity versus time. So you learn something on day one, and without reviewing it, it'll look something like this. There's a decline as you've forgotten most of it, which is known as the forgetting curve. Now, if you review or recall the topic at spaced out intervals, the forgetting curve begins to flatten out. So on day 2, it looks something like this, and by day 7, the curve flattens out completely, giving you the maximum results. So let's say you studied a particular topic today. Now, instead of following the traditional note-taking strategy, you want to write questions for yourself that you may have, so you can come back to it later when you're revising and answer them. So the basic idea here is to review the material after some forgetting takes place. So you could go from day 1 to day 2 to day 7, then day 14 and onwards, and increase the interim based on what works best for you. So the notion behind this is that the simple act of retrieving or trying to recall the information interrupts forgetting and helps strengthen your memory. Returning to the topic periodically over time helps you remember better. So the key here is to review the material at the right time, i.e. once some forgetting has happened. So you want to time your study sessions around it to get the best results. And you also don't want to overdo the forgetting that requires you to relearn the material all over again. Okay, and now the second and final evidence-based technique that we'll go through today is the active recall, which is basically trying to recall or remember facts from our brain. And there are two primary reasons why this works. Number one, it helps you identify your weak spots, so you know where to focus on and make room for improvement. Number two, recalling facts from your brain helps reconsolidate the memory and incorporate long-term memory into your learning. So to put this into action, you want to start off by reading the text attentively so you're able to recall facts from it later. So you want to take your time with reading the text and internalizing it. And there's also this popular belief that learning sticks better when the mind has to work. So you want to do exactly that. And once you've done that, you want to test yourself repeatedly at spaced out intervals by asking yourself questions about the material you've studied and figure out what you know and don't know and make improvements accordingly. Okay, so let's go back and look at some of the evidence behind this that convincingly shows that active recall is by far one of the best strategies we can apply into our study routines. So in 1978, there was this research conducted between two groups of students where group 1 were told a story and they were tested immediately afterwards, and group 2 weren't tested at all. And according to the results, group 1 students were able to recall 53% of the material on the test, followed by another test a week later where they could recall 39% of it. And group 2 students who weren't tested at all the first time until a week later were able to recall only 28% of it. And finally, there was this other group of students who were tested 3 times post the initial exposure, and a week later they were able to recall 53% of the material. So this goes to show how the outcome massively changes by repeated practice testing. Now, everything we've seen so far may seem counterintuitive to you, but the research and evidence behind this suggests otherwise. And even though active recall and spaced repetition can evidently help us upgrade our learning, we tend to stick to the traditional note-taking and rereading strategies, probably because that feels like way less of a heavy lift for us. As spaced repetition and active recall requires more cognitive effort, we can conclude from this that the more cognitive effort required to recall something, the better and the more durable the learning is. And to make life easier, you can practice for 10 minutes every day instead of practicing it for hours on end, and this will give you better results. And it's also an ideal way to approach studying, as you're not having to spend endless amount of time doing mindless revision. And now, if you're interested to figure out other techniques you can implement to upgrade your learning, you might want to give this book a read, Make It Stick. It'll give you deeper insights into
the science of learning.
So if you've come this far, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you spending this time with me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!
Right.
So if you've come this far, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you spending this time with me,